What is up, Sheeples?
What up, Sheeples? Hello, hello, hello. It feels good to be back.
Back after a while, yeah?
Oh my dude.
It's been
It's
like a
genuinely been
nice two
crazy.
week
Yeah.
hiatus, high migracious.
Hiatus.
He,
It's
he,
been a hiatus.
hiatus.
Yeah.
Hiatus.
Hiatus.
Okay, it's been a
Um,
2 week wait. I guess that's
yeah.
simpler. Why do we have to flex our lexicon like that? So, like, just ekdam full on. But what is up? It's been a while, I
To
think.
the chaotic world of Sheeples, I
Yeah,
guess.
chaos shall prevail. Okay, so we're back after the whole Halloween month, and I
Yeah.
guess we I mean, for a lot of you who've been sort of watching or hearing regularly, the apologies are in order for not having an episode out for 2 weeks. But both of us were like caught in some personal stuff, and now that that's behind us, we figured that we want to touch on one of those topics that needs to get spoken about, even if it sounds
We
zabardasti.
we haven't introduced ourselves. We
Oh
are
yeah, what's the
rusty at the
name?
moment. Introduce boy.
Wait. Okay, I went Z. What's your name, bro? Who are you
I
this
think
time?
since we are back today, I'd stick to 1000 - 7 because I think it's a good
Nice. That's like a nice
um
little safe space.
yeah, safe space to be in. it's it's been so long though, dude. It feels so weird being
Yeah,
on a
it
pod again.
it does.
It's
I'm like,
two
look,
weeks.
dude, do you want to pause and like practice how to podcast before we start? But I'm like, wait, we are just
Yeah, no.
random as fuck, anyways. So let's just let's do you, bro. Do you?
Structure. What is structure?
What is
Is there a
structure?
structure?
I don't even know the spelling. Does it really begin with a K or something? Is that French? I
Uh,
don't speak. Do you even structure, bro? But yeah, I mean, so as you've read from the title already, this is going to be an episode on mental health.
yeah,
And if you're one of those people who has this thought that, yeah, what the fuck, another episode on mental health, or
yeah.
if you think that this topic's just become an echo chamber, or if you think we as the sheeples community are talking about it too much, if you're one of those people, I get where you're coming from. I don't agree with you, but I get where you're coming from. It's sort of become like the pop culture thing to talk about mental health, and we're guilty too, taking part in it. But let me level with you and give you our reasons why. And I think my fellow sheeple 1000 - 7 would agree with me on this. Is that this topic has been on mute for so many years at this point, so many centuries. I think it's just a recent, like, if you look at the history of time versus the amount of time mental health has gotten a spotlight, it is so small. And I guess now that it's finally here, it deserves every bit of time you can give to it, because I mean, there are people like you and me who, at this point of time, at least have the coping mechanisms to live life and to get on with the struggles that we are. But the best of us have been at a point where we didn't have those coping mechanisms, or there have been times where it's become so dark and nihilistic that, for a lot of people, the reason to exist becomes questionable. And we personally think that if that's the kind of sentiment, if that's the kind of culture that is sort of becoming prevalent, mental health needs to be an echo chamber, because you never know who might need to listen to exactly what we're going to talk about right now. And if this has the potential to, like, save someone's life, figuratively or literally, I would do this every week. What about you, my friend?
Also kind of our roots, right? Like
Yeah.
we wanted to start Sheeples because we felt there was a need for us to do something.
Fair.
We were also in a bad place, so that's why we wanted to, and that's how like it's always been, right? The whole idea of Sheeples being there to talk about mental health and other such issues, and we want to work on so much more ahead.
Yeah.
This year has been a bit of a kind of like stepping stone for us because we wanted to learn a lot about ourselves. We wanted to learn a lot about what we can do with the sheeples. We've been going back and forth about so many things in the past few months because we've always like had ideas. Just executing them is the part where we need to start, like getting to it and kind of improving the content that we are already making, and that's what we strive to do further. Which
True.
hopefully you sheeples will be seeing like in the next few episodes. there's going to be some new stuff coming up from us. There's going to be more people being invited.
Yeah,
Hopefully, like more sheeples being invited to the pod. It'll be a
fingers
lot of fun. And
crossed.
the other part is we want to get the community itself involved. And mental health, I think, is a good topic that can be spoken, can be made normal to be
Yeah, it needs to.
in our
It needs like
community.
I mean, why can't mental health be sort of that casual icebreaker that two people talk
Yeah,
about at a party, or why can't it be like that kind of talk? I mean, like as a species or as a community, we're just so used to flexing, right? Like
yeah.
our social status, our physical status.
Flex. We
Yeah,
gotta
dude.
flex on them, bro. We
Yeah,
gotta
bro.
flex
Full.
on them.
As a weird flex, but okay. Like people have like the weirdest of flexes at times. Sometimes they're pretty materialistic. Sometimes they're pretty, limited to their physicalities. I mean, that's fine. I guess that's great. But why is mental health that sort of topic that only comes out after you've known somebody for like 6 years, and then one day you could just tell them something and they'll be like, dude, or like, why did you tell it to me before? And it's like layered like a freaking onion, like it makes you cry but you really don't know what's inside. So it's like,
Shrek references everywhere.
dude, full on like
You know,
invisible
ogres are like onions because they have souls.
donkey. It's like, let's go, dude. I missed that franchise. Fuck, Shrek made some good
Shrek
movies.
2 was amazing. Shrek 3 was okay.
Yeah, I think it just got
Actually, not
confusing.
okay. It was shit. Shrek 3
Which
was
there
bad.
was one where like he went through time and shit, and like there was like Rumpelstiltskin and like all of
I
that.
think that was the fourth one. That was
That
the
was the
fourth
fourth
one, if
one.
I'm not wrong. But
I think it was so
fourth one
sweet.
was fine.
Dude, even the
Fourth one was
soundtracks in the
good.
movie were so good, so good. Like they were
Yeah.
really good. But yeah, without sort of getting into a transition here, I mean, so
Essentially us.
yeah, so me and thousand minus seven. I mean, thousand minus seven and I. We were talking about this thing just a while before. Okay, so we were trying to be all
Yeah.
professional and like structure our podcast like legit 10 minutes before you heard this, right? So that's how professional we are. But we were talking about what do
Yeah.
we want to talk about, like because this is an important topic. We didn't want to freeball this. I mean, like
I
I
mean,
don't
we
want to
freeball
flex,
everything,
but
so
yeah, I don't want to flex, but most of our episodes we get by, right? Like we don't need the
yeah.
structure because I mean I'm grateful for the fact and I'm grateful for him too that we both have that kind of ability where we can speak as we
Wow,
think.
wow. This feels like you're fucking sucking yourself off.
See that, bro, like self anchor, like. But yeah, no. So the
Just
point
give
is,
me that circle.
see, no, for all of those sensitive audiences, we're sorry. We're not that kind of podcast, but we occasionally do some kind of humor like that. But yeah, so we were
We've had
structuring.
some episodes that sheeples will be like, "What the hell is
Love,
wrong with you
dude.
two?"
I wish y'all could hear to some behind the scenes. Like you would be scandalized.
Yeah,
AF.
yeah.
कौन है ये लोग कहाँ से आ गए हैं कहाँ से आ जाते हैं. But no, I
Uh,
guess what I'm trying to say is we were sort of structuring and we decided that we want this episode to be on mental health, of course, but we also wanted to highlight a specific conversation around mental health which doesn't get
mhm.
spoken about much. Is that why is it so difficult to talk about it? Why is it something that we shroud in shadows, and this idea of identity that we have, I think that comes in our way more often than helping us out, right? So I mean,
And labels.
yeah, labels, pigeonholing yourself is a nice
Yeah,
word that 1007 likes to give it. Labeling yourself, whatever form, right? So right now
yeah.
you're listening to this. You could be from India, or you could be from North America. You could be from London. You could be from Africa. You could be from Iceland. You could be from wherever. But there's a good chance that you're pretty invested in this identity that you've built up. It's like a narrative. It's
Yeah.
basically like imagine your entire lifetime of, let's say, on an average 70 years is like a little play, like an opera that you're going to perform. And your identity is the script that you've written yourself. And you're going to try very hard all your life to stick to that script that you've written yourself. Okay, let's get one thing very clear right from the beginning is you're the person who writes your own identity. Okay, you're not born with it. Your parents or your family members or the role models in your life might try to force fit an identity on you, but at some point you are adult enough to realize that it's your own thing. But that's just an
Things you
illusion.
discover over time,
Yeah,
especially like the more you explore, right? That's the main part, and that's what we want to get to as well throughout
yeah,
this episode. is that exploring is very important, especially like when it comes to identity and labeling yourself. Like we are very quick to want to identify with something. I think that's the part where we always, and that's where the word pigeonholing ourselves comes from, to be like more relevant, at least in this conversation, is that we always want to be a part of this thing, so we'll identify as this particular person, or some like, if I want to take it as a light example, let's say if I want to identify as a Potterhead, so I'll be like, oh, I'll just talk to a lot more Potterheads. It might be like I might be into, and this is just an example. I'm not like talking about it as a very serious thing. It's just
Hey,
one
no,
of
fuck
those
you.
things.
You are a Potterhead. Don't you joke about that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah. Potterhead, yes. But like there are so many other things that I would love to explore as well, right? My life wouldn't just revolve around one thing, and
Right.
that's where I think pigeonholing yourself or just like labeling yourself can be detrimental to you, because if
True.
you do it too early or if you do it too quickly, you kind of feel like you're stuck with that identity or the stuck with that label, and then you're trying to make yourself live up to that label, which is, I don't think, the best for your own mental health in that sense, and your own like well-being, because a lot of the time like we might not feel good enough to the label that we put ourselves under. And that's the reason why exploring is important. That's the reason why giving yourself the time and space to learn about yourself, discover yourself more is important. Because again, like Z and I have been saying, like, just labeling can be difficult. Identifying with things and being able to identify feels amazing, but then there are times that it can also be detrimental to our own mental health.
Yeah, I mean that I think that's pretty bang on. And I think that perfectly ties in with what I was talking about. Is that you could be listening to this from any part of the world, and there's a good chance you have this pretty rehearsed sense of identity. And I mean, I like to go and say it up front. Is that identity pulls you back more often than it favors you or it helps you out. And that might sound like a pretty scandalizing thing to say to somebody I don't even know,
especially
but
especially for people like who are very strong about their identity and
yeah,
like find solace in it. Like we are very happy that you found something that you are really happy with. But then there's the other side of things that we want to talk about, where like
yeah,
people who are trying to find and are not like able to do it, or they identify with something but then they realize they aren't that is.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
completely fair. I mean, like, I get it. Like, I mean, I'm saying that I'm saying it up front that it might sound very scandalizing, and I'd like to be objective about it, but this is one of those things where, in my limited set of experience, I have seen that it often drags people down, right? And one of, I mean, it drags you down in many ways, but let's just stick to what we're talking about, and let me try to tell you how it drags you down in terms of mental health.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of us grow up with this idea that we have to be strong, that we have to fight for ourselves, and that nobody owes us anything, and we're the one who can solve our own problems. Okay, these are banal advices that you will hear at some point. You will even tell yourself at some point, and you have even told others at some point, right? This idea of the world doesn't owe you anything. You are responsible for your own problems, and you have to find out how to solve them. Now,
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that piece of advice. It's just that as as the whole of humanity, we interpret it in a very narrow way, and we start thinking that nobody can help us out. If we need help, we have to help ourselves out, which is great as a starter point, but not so great in terms of mental health, because the nature of how mental health is designed is that it needs to be something that is spoken out loud with others so that a sense of normalcy is created. Okay, there are a whole bunch of people who face anxiety. There are a whole bunch of people who face self-destructive behaviors. There are a whole bunch of people who go through nervous breakdowns. But the problem is that most of those people don't speak about it to others, and that's why a sense of normalcy is never created. It always feels like an alien happenstance that happens to 1 in 10 million people, and that's absolutely not true. Because I mean, if I really look back at the times where I've gotten comfortable with people and they've spoken about their mental health to me, I think at every point someone or the other has accepted that they've gone through anxiety, that they have gone through thought patterns that are self-destructive. They've gone through nervous breakdowns, But the problem is, it needs a certain kind of comfort for most people to talk about it. Me, on the other hand, I'm completely okay just blurting it out loud. I often talk to people that I have just met, and I tell them that, hey, you know what, I'm sorry I couldn't reply to your text, or I'm sorry I couldn't call you back because I was going through a lot of anxiety. So I had to switch off my phone and take a 3-day reset. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but that's just me. But for a whole lot of people, that's just not possible because they're so invested in their own identity that they feel that it would sort of, how do I put it, that it would break character if they were to ask for help, or it would
Persona that you're
break.
creating for yourself that
Yeah, like in
somehow at some point might become not you.
exactly, like everybody should imagine somebody like their own father. Do you think at any point your father will come to you and tell you, son, or daughter, I have been going through anxiety and I've been going through jitters and nervous breakdowns? I think most people would answer no, because
Yeah, yeah.
for most people, the dad figures or dads in their life or fathers in their life are very headstrong, are very capable, are very self-sufficient. But the truth is, there is a very good chance, objectively speaking, that your father or your father figure or your mother or whoever that you look up to as a role model has gone through those same exact feelings. But the thing is, they would never admit it to themselves, and ergo, they would never admit it to even you or anybody
The
for
crazy,
that matter of
the
fact.
crazy part is like you need to really, really, really talk to your parents
Yeah.
to really get to know because when even talking about yourself, not everybody's parents are openly like
Hmm.
comfortable about talking about mental health because it's not a topic they've ever
Yeah. They never had that
been.
privilege, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's a thing that takes time for them to understand, so we kind of need to be patient as well to like realize that they've been in this kind of an environment and things have changed
Yeah.
so much over the years. And that's what the main thing is, like things change.
Yeah.
if
Very
if
true.
if the and society can change, that means you yourself aren't like gonna stay the same all the time. And
Exactly.
that's where that's where the main thing comes about. Why just put so everything doesn't need a label. That's the thing that we need to realize, because yes, some things we can identify with and it can be strong for us and it can be a motivating factor, but then there are so many other things in our lives that don't require us to just label ourselves, right? Like
True.
there might be things that you're not sure of. So the main thing is that giving yourself time to understand that part of your personality, your persona, before building it up is important, because at like some point, whenever you're developing that mindset and that personality and that ideology, at some point there will be something that'll come up that you realize that, oh no, maybe the way I thought, or maybe the way like I've been going about this is a little different from what I actually want to do. If I had to give an example, because this seems a little too vague,
Hmm.
if I'm like speaking of it in that way, I can talk about. And again, we're sorry if we keep like putting ourselves in this conversation, because I think that's the only thing we can draw upon, right?
Yeah, right. We can
It's
just
it's
like
our own
lead by
experiences.
example, I guess. That if we're comfortable
Yeah.
enough to talk about, the things that we're facing, I hope at some point other people also get the courage to do the same.
I think personally, like if I had to speak about my own experiences, I would also like to say that I've thought about different. I've labeled myself as. I guess this is getting a little too personal, but I've always thought about the whole idea of and touching upon it a little bit about sexuality and all those kind of things.
Hmm.
And when it comes to like being in a relationship, what are my thoughts? Being or am I like not interested in it at all? Is it like I'm looking for my career? Is it or is it I'm looking, I need to have a relationship to go ahead? Because there are a lot of things, like a lot of people say that you need to be why don't you get a girlfriend, or why don't you get someone
हाँ
to
bro,
be
ऐसा
with you?
ऐसा बाजार में चले जा और पूछ.
so
Like
so
people talk about it like it's that easy, right? Just bro, get a girlfriend. मतलब Amazon पे जा bro और get a boyfriend. It's like super easy.
yeah, exactly, right.
Flipkart
it's
पे
it's not
ऑफर चल
it's
रहा है.
not just that, it's not like that person doesn't might not have thought about it. I'm quite sure,
Yeah,
like even I've thought about like why do I want to get into a relationship right now,
yeah,
those kind of things, or am I even interested?
yeah.
Because
Am I even interested, right?
there have been times I've thought about like is a relationship or is any kind of romantic pursuit, my
Hmm.
personal liking. Like, do I even want that? Do I even want to go after it?
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think most people don't
again,
even think about that. They're just like, chahiye mujhe, bas.
yeah, but that's the thing, right? I'm not labeling it right now because
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
idea is that I'm not sure of if that is the case or not.
True.
Do I and right now, I don't think I want to delve too deep into it because
Mm-hmm.
I first want to focus on where I want to go personally. Like, I don't feel like I'm at a place that I can say, like, I am there. I'm like getting shit done. I'm doing my best. I'm following my passion at 100%, and I've
Yeah.
made it. No,
True.
because I want to first make myself reach my own particular goal, my own vision, which is, for me, it's music, and hopefully sheep is growing, and all my and me being able to help my mom build our company into something even bigger. But for Z, it might be something different, and I think he can talk about it in his own experience. But like for me, I think that's right now taking more precedence over like any other kind of ideology. So if I end up like labeling myself as, let's just say, if I say that I'm ace, or if I'm like not interested at all in relationships, that's just, I'm just putting a label over myself without even
Yeah.
like thinking about it, right? Without it, just because like I have that thought doesn't mean I am at the
True.
moment.
Very true. I mean, like
So
at some point, I think labeling is just the easy way out we take. Because the
yeah.
alternative is like years of soul searching, and then we go like,
And
acha.
this is especially true for a lot of like, and like you said, years of soul searching. So many like people who come out in in different ways, they are coming out because they've taken their whole like 15, 16 years to
Yeah,
be able to understand themselves.
there is an effort for sure. I mean, there is
Yeah.
there is that grind that they have been through.
Yeah, they've explored the options. They know in their head what it is. So once like they are sure, that's why they are coming out. I think that's where personally I'm getting stuck. What about you, Z? Like,
Um, like, so to be very honest, I've been through this roller coaster of strongly building up and investing in inside an identity, like being inside that cocoon and just telling myself that I can't do things that would cancel that out because I have to keep investing in that sense of identity. And now that I look back, I mean, I'm not exactly old and I'm not exactly young, but I'm sort of at that halfway point. And when I look back, with whatever little bit of wisdom that I have, I can just see honestly that my identity has held me back so many times. Like, as a personal example, there was a point in my life where I wanted to be very formal. Like, I dressed formally and I wore shoes and I wore trousers and I wore shirts. And it sort of reinforced this very professional, office going identity inside of me. And to be very honest, I would have a very hard time letting myself laugh at jokes or do
mhm,
like things that most people would label juvenile. And it's I mean, I probably couldn't do justice with words, but it's just so it's so insane. It's so crazy that just a set of clothes and a
yeah,
job could do this to you, right? And it just took me away from enjoying so many things in life. And then I was like, oh no, that's very bacha and that's very juvenile and that's very naive. Nahi, nahi. We wear shirts now, so we will drink whiskey and like we will.
my question to you about this is like, has this been very recent, or have you been undergoing this persona creation like over the past 5, 6 years? Like, what has it been like for you?
No, so currently where I am at is actually a very comfortable space where I am almost coming to a point of non-identity. But where I was, like at least probably even 2 years before this or a year before this, when you and I had just met, I was in that very uptight, stick up my ass kind of phase where I was like, oh no, you know this is me.
Yeah.
I have a beard, I dress, I groom, and I will be this way. Like, it was so insane because, like, I think I'm having trouble describing it because when I was in that phase, that felt extremely natural and coherent. Like, that felt like my skin. But right now when I look back, and I was like, I was actually trying to be that person. And I guess that's where the rift is. Like, the idea with identity is that it should be effortless. And again, this is should be from a personal point of view. You might disagree with me, and you might have your reasons. I completely get that, but I
The
feel
two of
that
us are still learning a lot, right? So
yeah,
if we are making a mistake in speaking about something, or we might not, make too much sense or be too coherent, it's
yeah.
because the two of us ourselves are not
I mean,
completely like solved,
yeah.
or
I I
like
think we're at
very
that great first step where we're
yeah,
acknowledging that we don't know, and I think that's the best place to be in, because if you would eternally be in a place of I don't know, you would always be making efforts to know, as opposed to being in a space of I know it all, where you're like, huh,
true.
so I don't need to make any efforts.
And I
I
think it's
mean,
good to like not know, right?
yeah, it's such a great place because I don't know. Like when you say it out loud, right? Like just to give you an example, if you're out in the street and you ask somebody, "Okay, excuse me, I want to go to this address. Do you know where it is?" They might actually not know the address, but they
Yeah.
will think for a minute.
They'll act like they'll do the whole acting that
Fight it,
it might be
yeah,
here. It's
it might be here,
not.
or they might tell you, you know what? Why
Yeah.
don't you go ask that security guy? He might know. But none of
Yeah, I'm
them.
I'm guilty of that.
So am I, man. But very few people actually say, "I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
don't know," because we have a
yeah.
tough time saying that. And I think that that's very representative of the culture that we've been growing up in, where we're supposed to be a know-it-all. We're supposed to know finance, and we're supposed to know
Yeah, dude,
personal
definitely.
life, and so that's the thing. So I think when you actually say those words out loud, that I don't know, you
Yeah.
actually embrace the idea of a non-identity, and
You,
that
you know
might
the funny thing, Z, like this is something just came to my head
yeah.
when you were speaking about like us meeting 2 years back
Yeah,
and you having, well, these are your words, stick up your ass.
yeah, yeah,
That's the like the persona that you created that first year, right?
yeah,
I'm quite sure that wasn't your persona before that, because we've had this conversation before in the rides towards college and all those
yeah.
kind of things, where
True.
you told me that you were a very different person 2 years,
Correct.
3 years back before we
Yep.
like met in college. And the whole funny part of it all is like in college, whoever's met Z, right? Whoever that might be, they might be from our own like classroom, or they might be from different classes. They have this idea of Z that is what he said, the person that he was trying to be,
Yeah.
but he wasn't coming out as his own self
His own.
in that place, because he wanted to be that identity, he wanted to be that persona, and that persona was a very strong part of him in college, and people
True.
still, I think about Z as that particular
Yeah.
persona, though I think that changed over the past year maybe.
That did.
But
And
that
what you
was,
said just brings to mind that there are no personalities or identities. There are just good actors.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I
very
guess
true.
that sort of sticks because we're all trying. Like I mean, like if you look back at your like if you really analyze. I mean, people seldom do that because we pretend to be busy in all of these things that we have, and I say pretend with a reason which I will get to later on. But if you really analyze
Yeah.
and look back in retrospect to the identity you are today, like if you were to take a piece of paper and pen and sketch
Hmm.
yourself as having a suit of a superhero suit, and if you were to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
your identity being your superhero suit, and if you were to like list down all the features that it had,
Hmm.
you weren't born with any of them, and there is a pretty good chance that each of those features has been very strategically borrowed from somebody else that you saw at some point. I mean, and if you sort of add all of that up, it basically means that each identity is just borrowed. It's just retrofitted with, it's like like an assembled gaming laptop. Like instead of buying an Alienware laptop, you'll be like, you know what, I'm gonna buy 10 parts from somewhere else and assemble it. But then
Yeah.
for each of those 10 parts, you basically research, right, on how to get that into one mainframe. And that's what we are.
Only
Just,
part is those parts keep getting upgraded. They keep changing over time
yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not important that you're gonna stay the same
Exactly.
parts
But
throughout your life.
we don't acknowledge that. We were like, you know
Yeah.
what, if this is the identity that I've built, that if I am 1000 minus 7 and I wear a lot of hoodies and I play the guitar and I am into music,
I'm getting
and
exposed.
I'm a chill person. I'm not. No, this
Am
could
I
be
a chill
anyone.
person?
This could be anyone, right? Like
Yeah.
even with just these 4 or 5 parameters or just these 4 or 5 features of yourself, you still limit yourself so much. Because let's say in an instance, like God forbid or the universe forbid, there comes a time where you have to put on a suit and go to a job and do a 9 to 5. You would have a hard time coming to
God
terms with
forbid.
that because that would
Man
completely
literally said, God forbid, before you have to put on a suit and go to a job.
right, and I mean that would be completely in opposition, completely be opposite of who you are, and you would have a tough time, or anyone with that identity would have a tough time doing that. And I guess that's where our own identity becomes our own inhibitor. And I think that's where having like this idea of a non-identity could be something we all benefit from. But again, coming back to the topic of how it could benefit mental health, is that I feel that like an easy exercise, okay, like I'm blabbering all of this, but how do I sort of distill this into actionable day-to-day advice that anybody could implement? Okay, so I get it that you have anybody who's listening to this from any part of the world. I get it, you have a set identity, and I am not telling you to change that. All I'm saying is give yourself 10 minutes in a week. Okay, 10 minutes in a week. Like in 7 days, which has insane amount of minutes, give yourself 10 minutes where you actively make an effort to take off your identity like you would take off your clothes. Okay? Just take your entire identity off you. It might take a bit of practice, but take it off you and try to
Yeah.
experience,
It's definitely gonna take a bit of practice, my friend.
right?
That's there.
So that's why begin small. Probably just take one
Yeah.
part of your identity off. Okay? And just take it off and for 10 minutes try to perceive the world in a particular way. And I don't know, that's an interesting personal experiment, and you don't even have to share the results. But try that just for 10 minutes once a week. Just see how
The
liberating
other,
it feels, because
yeah,
you're wearing, at this point, you're wearing so many costumes. Like if your identity is a costume, you're wearing multiple costumes, and in
yeah.
this hot and humid world that we live in, you're wearing an insane amount of costumes. And just thinking about taking off one of those costumes, just taking one of them off, at least mentally would seem a bit liberating. So just imagine if you took all of them off, which is what people try to get at, right? With meditation, and they try to get at with spirituality, and some
The other part,
religions.
the other part of it, like, comes from the whole idea that we, like we said, exploring, right? The main thing is once you allow yourself to explore, whether it be those 10 minutes in a day or in a week, like Z mentioned before, just the idea of being able to give something new a chance can be exciting, because change might feel crazy, scary, and maybe not up something that you want right now, but like getting to know that there is a possibility out there that you might be into something, or might want something else from yourself, is opens the door to another. Like, I think it opens the door to so much more, especially
So
like a new thought process for yourself, because
yeah,
that's the thing, right? Like, we need to be comfortable with the idea that this is a possibility, this is something that can happen, and there's a lot more I can do with myself
yeah,
over time, rather than just being stuck in one place and doing that one thing for how many ever years that might be.
true, very true.
And I think that's the main thing, right? Like, how do we get there? The one thing, like Z said, give yourself that time, but also just try to be open, or to yourself, be honest to yourself, because if you're not comfortable, let yourself know in your head that I am not comfortable, because that's where we make the mistake, that we think that, oh no, maybe it's just that one time I'm not feeling good, maybe, if I do this tomorrow, I'll be fine again, I'll be able to do it properly, and that's not always the case. You might
True.
not. You're kind of selling yourself a lie, that you want to be that thing, but then maybe you aren't. And maybe that's what you need to understand. You need to learn from your own, like, signs. You need to learn your own, basically, signals that you're not into this. You need to find something that needs changing, that needs to be a little different, or maybe
Very
it
true.
might just, yeah. So it's just small things that will help you, change that thought process, change that persona, and maybe get to a place that at least at the moment you can be comfortable with.
Yeah, because like all of this that he just said is reflective in the fact that um you're listening to this podcast to a bunch of dudes that you've never met, don't even know.
Yeah.
But just because you've hit this podcast, you in a way are okay with taking advice from us. And that
Yeah.
means that you aren't comfortable with talking about mental health to the people in your life already. And I guess that's indicative of how weird identity is, because you feel that you have this sense of identity, therefore you can't talk to your loved ones because they would feel that that doesn't sound like you. But you choose
Yeah.
to turn to a podcast, or you choose to turn to a YouTube page, or you choose to turn to a WebMD article and try to self-diagnose if what you're feeling is what they're talking about. And I guess
Mhm.
that's where that's where the whole non-identity thing comes in, because right now when you're listening to what we're saying, you're a nobody and we're a nobody, and it's suddenly comfortable. And that's so weird to explain, because this is
It's
operating
just
from
all
us.
anonymous at the end of the day.
Yeah, so this is operating from a space of, like, an easier way to say non-identity is to say zero ego. And ego and identity are very closely tied together. I mean, a lot of people might say, you know what, I don't have ego, but I have self-respect. That's just ego through the back door. And this is not about whether ego is good or bad, but
Okay, that's the first that I've heard about it, and that sounds so wrong
yeah,
in
right.
so many
This,
ways.
again, that's just like self-stroking, but like, theek hai. Like, but the point is that ego. I'm
Stroking.
not going to talk about whether ego is good or bad, but I'm definitely going to talk about how it sort of drags you down at times. And
Yeah.
and when two people operate from a space of non-identity, it is oddly very comforting. It's literally like the sea and the ocean meeting with zero friction. The transition is like so smooth and so seamless that it seems like the horizon, and that's why they can meet. If there is friction between two people, if both people strongly come from two different areas, they can't ever be comfortable together till they
Mhm.
let go, both of them let go. And I guess that's like the first step to mental health, is to like accept that I am nobody. um, and I think once you sort of shed that skin outside, you can enter the door into the house where the discussion of mental health is normalized. I
You
think
know,
that's
you know
the.
the funny thing is, this reminds me of like this quote from Fight Club.
Uh-huh.
And just saying, like, Fight Club is one of my favorite movies that I've ever watched. I have like a full-on
I mean,
poster of it in my
it's
room and
simple. All it
everything.
has is two rules, right? So that's what the whole
Well,
movie is
it
about.
has it has quite a few rules, more than two at least, I'll say. but we know the first two rules.
Yeah, of course
But
we do.
in that, like, there was this line that Tyler Durden said, which was about like self-improvement is masturbation, but self-destruction is the answer.
Mm.
That kind of fits here, right? Like,
Yeah,
to an
yeah,
extent
it
where
does. It does. And you don't have to look at self-destruction literally. It's actually
yeah. It's
it.
I think he also meant it in a very metaphorical way.
Yeah, it is metaphorical. I mean, like, you've created this. It's invisible. This illusion that you've
Yeah.
created. It's like the king's new clothes kind of story from the childhood, right? You're actually naked, but you
Yeah.
pretend that you're wearing clothes, and and you get so concerned about how no one's commenting on it, but you don't realize that this entire illusion is basically invisible. So if you destruct what is invisible, you are losing everything and yet losing nothing. So you would have to be a certain amount of high right
Schrodinger's
now
cat,
to.
but with illusions.
Yeah, you'd have to be a certain amount of high right now maybe to understand what we're talking. And if you're sober and you get it, awesome. Like,
Ah, my
you
God.
probably breathe cleaner
So
air than
here's the
we do.
thing, like, we might sound very preachy,
Yeah,
we might sound
no,
very
but
forceful at times,
we're
but
both idiots,
because,
so
yeah,
yeah.
it's because we, again, like we said, this is something we want to push as an agenda because it's important. It's something that is
है
we
ब्रो,
feel is very
agenda तो है,
important to
मतलब
us.
ये तो है, like there is the sheeples have an agenda.
Yeah.
It's not like a random podcast like we made it make it out to be. The idea with being random is to put the listener, is to put the fellow sheeple in this space of
You
comfort.
sheeples are friends. That's the thing.
Yeah,
We
it's
are all friends just
the idea
talking
with
about life.
being random and chaotic and not having a pattern is exactly this. We don't have an identity
Yeah.
because we want y'all to feel comfortable and shed your own identity as well.
when
Because
Yeah, like whenever we are with friends, we don't have a structure to our conversation. It's
Yeah.
always stupid.
Yeah. Otherwise, you
It's,
really need to revisit definition of friends. I
yeah.
mean, like,
Uh,
yeah, that's a whole other podcast. Why we have so many friends yet we have none.
did I hope that came onto the recording because I clapped like 5 times there.
Okay.
It's the Friends theme song.
Whoa, whoa,
I'm
whoa.
sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Again, we hasn't watched it, so I
I
couldn't.
haven't watched Friends, so you
It's
can
going
send
to
me
go
all
over
the
his
hate
head.
mail you want to, but yeah, I still haven't.
We need to get you on that series at some
Needs to
point.
get that needs to happen. Like probably start a change.org petition. Change Z. Get him to watch Friends. This is not
Change
done.
the sign this petition
Sign this
to get
petition.
this
Honorable Prime
to get
Minister.
this people to watch Friends.
Yeah. Honorable Prime
Um,
Minister Ritik Roshan. Please sign our petition too.
God. But yeah, that's the
Okay,
thing.
I guess this is pretty much it. I don't want to drone on too much about the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah. I think we've spoken a lot
we,
about
we
it.
hit
We
the nail on the head. And at any point,
and
if you think we were not on point, feel free to point that out.
yeah,
Call us out.
see, the
We're
main
still
thing is
learning.
this is an interactive thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would love to hear your process, your thought processes. We would love to hear what you sheeples think, and that's what we are trying to do further on is get some of you sheeples on whenever we have like whatever different topics we might have. But even for mental health, we've spoken about our journeys a lot, and I think that's because that's the only journey we can speak of because we can speak about ourselves and not someone else's journey because it's their story to tell. And that's where we want to get you sheepers involved is where if anybody who has a strong affinity towards speaking out about mental health or feels like this is something they want to get comfortable with talk about more, and it'll only happen if we make ourselves okay with talking about it,
Very
is
true.
that like come on here with us, have a conversation, maybe give your thoughts about mental health. If you want to share something about your journey, we would love to have you sheepers share it. It might not be in the pod, it might just be over Insta, it might just be over a DM where you can just let us know that if you're okay with something put on as an example on or you want to have something that you need to say about mental health. We would love to put it on our feed, we would love to put it on our stories. It would be really in a good, I think, idea to get you sheepers involved because this is a community at the end of the day, and that's what it is for. It's you, it is us, it is all of us together helping each other reach like be in a better place and help each other grow. So
Bang
that
on.
would be amazing to
Yeah,
have.
that would. That would.
But yeah, I think today's episode was a fun one. Well, fun one, I'd say deep one.
Deep
Rather
one.
deep one for to
Wading
record.
those waters.
Wading those waters. Oh my! I think that this kind of reminds me of the first article I read about going
I know.
deep into the water.
Letting go of that
But
fart that was held
uh,
on for way too long, I guess.
that I can't believe that was the first thing we ever spoke about, and that's how
Fuck.
we analyzed it.
I'm so glad that's how we did it because we set the tone for being
Yeah.
like that was so important. Otherwise, you're gonna be like, hello,
Dude,
sheeples. This is
imagine
Z
like
and thousand minus
at the time
seven.
I had just gotten better from gastritis as well.
Yeah, so that was like literal and metaphorical.
Yeah.
So
That was literal
awesome.
and metaphorical for sure. Too much information for you guys. Oh well, sorry, you
TMI
sheeples.
guys, TMI, TMI. Yeah.
TMI. But yeah, I
Right
think
then,
it's time to say
this was a
goodbye.
brilliant episode. We're gonna talk to you soon then. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.
Shivers!
Shippers!
Shivers!